If Whitaker decides in any way to limit or curtail the Mueller investigation, are you okay with that?
Look, it's going to be up to him. I think he's very well aware politically. I think he's astute politically. He's a very smart person, a very respected person. He's going to do what's right. I would not get involved. And all these people that say, I'm going to end the investigation, they've been saying that now for how long has this witch hunt gone on?
The president talking about Matt Whitaker, his acting attorney general. In conversations with Senator Lindsey Graham and others, Whitaker has said he doesn't have any plans to do anything with the Mueller investigation. He's also not planning to recuse himself, but that has not stopped the worry, especially among Democrats, and action. Democrats filing a lawsuit saying because the Senate has not consented to Mr. Whitaker serving as an officer of the United States, his designation by the president to perform the functions and duties of the Attorney General violates the Appointments Clause. Indeed, if allowed to stand, Mr. Whitaker's appointment would create a roadmap for the evasion of the constitutionally prescribed Senate advice and consent role. With that, let's bring in our panel and start there. Jonathan Swan, national political reporter for Axios, Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and Mollie Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. Okay, Jonathan, how concerned are they at the White House about Whitaker, this effort on a constitutional grounds legally, and where he stands?
I don't get the sense they're concerned at all. What they're concerned about is there is a body of opinion inside the White House that he's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to confirm. There are people that argue that. But the president is very happy with Matt Whitaker. Privately has been basically gushing about him. He's used the word courage to describe him. Thinks he's been very strong. And what Trump likes is that he hasn't recused himself. He hasn't stepped down and that he's holding the line. So Trump is very, very happy with Matt Whitaker. Whether that means he'll end up being a permanent appointment, I wouldn't go that far. I think it's much more likely he's not. But Trump's very happy.
Mara.
Yeah, at least for now, he's overseeing the Mueller investigation. That means that he can pass on, he can weigh in on indictments, on subpoenas. He can, if he wants to, share information about the investigation with the White House. So there's a lot that he can do for the president, even if he's only the acting attorney general.
Mollie, any pitfalls here?
Well, I think what you're actually seeing here is just a lot of frustration that finally someone is in charge of this Mueller probe who is someone who the president has put in charge. As far as the argument that this is something that presidents can't do, presidents have been temporary filling appointments like this going back to Thomas Jefferson. So the idea that Donald Trump is doing something wildly different than other presidents is ludicrous. But I think what's really happening is people had such hope that this special counsel would be used to unseat a democratically elected president, and they thought that maybe the Russia thing would go somewhere, or obstruction. And despite all the baiting, Trump is not even removing anyone or stopping this probe at all. So I think people are just frustrated that that big plan is not coming to fruition.
Okay, also on the Mueller investigation, the president saying that he may or may not step down. I mean, he may or may not answer questions beyond what he's writing. And he was talking about that with Chris Wallace. An interview really was chock full of news this weekend. Take a listen.
There's going to be no sit-down interview and nothing, written or in person, on obstruction. I
would say probably. Probably. I mean, I can change my mind, but probably.
What are the odds? 1 in 100?
I don't do odds. I gave very detailed
casinos, sir.
You're right, and very successfully, actually. We gave very, very complete answers to a lot of questions that I shouldn't have even been asked. And I think that should solve the problem.
So do we think this is coming to a head now, Jonathan?
I think it's been very clear for some time that the president was not going to do an in-person interview. This is the first time, though, with Chris Wallace that he's actually acknowledged as much publicly. Trump has always dangled out the carrot, I want to do it, if only they'll be fair to me, I may do it, etc., etc. His legal team has unanimously been of the view that it's a terrible idea. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the early legal team with Ty Cobb and John Dowd or the current legal team. Nobody thinks this is a good idea. It now is the first time the president has acknowledged as much publicly. It should be said, though, that his legal team, it's an important, I wouldn't call it a victory, but at least a small victory maybe, that they managed to not answer anything, according to them, on obstruction by limiting their answers to what happened before he joined the White House. I mean, that's a sort of concession from the Mueller team.
Molly?
Well, it is also, we should be reminded that this special counsel was set up to investigate treasonous collusion with Russia to steal an election. And so, of course, as soon as that didn't pan out, people tried to change it to obstruction or change it to other things. But no lawyer worth his salt would have the president speaking on a limitless probe. But I am concerned that people who seem to care about rule of law don't care that we still don't actually even know what the scope of the special counsel is. This is a limitless probe. This is a person who has all the powers of the FBI and the CIA and an endless budget, and we don't even know what the scope is. And to act like this is okay or this is proper procedure, I'm hoping we have people who care about rule of law enough to know that special counsel shouldn't be set up as political vindictiveness or revenge because people you don't like win elections.
Mara, the drama that was the hard pass up in the air with Jim Acosta at CNN is over. Sarah Sanders putting out a statement: we would have greatly preferred to continue hosting White House press conferences in reliance on a set of understood professional norms. We believe the overwhelming majority of journalists covering the White House share that preference. But given the position taken by CNN, we now feel obligated to replace previously shared practices with explicit rules, saying they're not going to take away his hard pass, they're not going to suspend it, but they are going to have rules of decorum and list those, and if you don't follow the rules, they have the option to say hit the road.
That's right. Well, a couple of things. When the judge said that they had to temporarily reinstate Acosta's pass, at that time the administration said they were going to yank it again at the end of that interim period. They've changed their mind. They've come up with these pretty limited rules. They only regard press conferences. Basically, you get one question, no follow-ups, unless the president or the administration official who's giving the press conference allows you to give one. And I think that'll put a lot of onus on other journalists. If somebody doesn't get an answer, then the person's colleagues presumably would ask the same question.
I think,
well, the rules are there, the bullet points. What were you going to say, Jonathan?
I was just going to say, I think what's also being missed in this is that it wasn't a First Amendment ruling. It was about due process. So this sets a predicate for the future, that they've now set up these rules, and they have a set of rules that they can then make further. I wouldn't be surprised if we haven't heard the last of this, is my way of, my very clumsy way of saying this. I wouldn't be surprised if they do actually down the track revoke somebody's hard pass and use this set of rules as the criteria.
Molly, real quick.
Well, it just seems the White House figured out a really good way out of its problem. These are very reasonable rules. I'm actually surprised that the White House Correspondents Association didn't have them in force prior to this. Jim Acosta being the mascot for the White House press corps is not good for the White House press corps. So it seems like a win all around for everybody.